Thank you everyone for coming today. My name is James Kane. I'm the president of United Mountain Defense, and I'm also our director of field operations. And my presentation today is open source citizen coalfield monitoring. So we're going to talk about some of the work we've been doing since 2005, give you a little bit of overview of procedures, and hopefully give you enough knowledge to go back to your communities and implement, theoretically, your own open source monitoring program, if you so choose. So we have been around since 2005. We were founded here in Knoxville. We were actually an offshoot of an Earth First group, and we kind of morphed into a legitimate nonprofit at some point in time. And in 2005, kind of the birth cries of our organization came through conflict with TDEC, which is the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and we wrangled with them over some coal permits just north of here. So basically, there's 4 things that we got from TDEC as part of our fight with them, which is ongoing. They no longer will issue ARAP permits for perennial intermittent streams. They're going to have a 100-foot buffer. They won't issue permits on coal seams that are acidic, and they will tighten permitting restrictions on haul roads. So at the time, we came into this massive regulatory authority who basically had the full run of the coal fields in Tennessee. Nobody was challenging them. They had to do some permitting and public participation things that were just to meet the letter of the law, but nobody really was paying attention. And then suddenly a bunch of upstart radical environmentalists got involved and started dogging this authority to this day. And it's kind of, they're one of our, as we call them, ancient enemies in Knoxville. So that's kind of a little bit of background. So what do we do? Well, United Mountain Defense used to be known for doing things like protest actions. This picture up on the screen is from Zeb Mountain, where some people crossed the line and got arrested. We used to do, and we still do, some protests on the square to get attention for the causes. This is actually downtown Knoxville, doing a Santa and his elves protest. And the copters waving us off. And we also used to be well known for doing nonviolent direct action. And this was kind of like the high point of our nonviolent direct action, the most in your face. This really put us on the map in Tennessee for being like a radical environmental organization. Some Earth First folks and UMD folks got a car, and they actually locked down to a car. I believe this was again at Zeb Mountain, and tried to stop mining there briefly. So that's kind of an idea of what we used to be known for. You know, getting in and messing with the regulators and trying to stop things and grind the process down. Now we're a little bit different. There's been a lot of changes over the past year and a half, 2 years. We've had some turnover in our organization. We've kind of shifted our focus a little bit, and we're using kind of leveraging new technologies and some resources to make an impact. So a lot of it revolves around what we call citizen enforcement, which is a key component of the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act is not just a bunch of regulations to try to clean up the environment and get people to pollute less. It actually has a really important provision that forms and underlies the basis of our monitoring programs. It grants private citizens the right to take independent enforcement actions. And so most of what I'll deal with today is kind of detailing our independent enforcement actions. Under the Clean Water Act, any person or entity that is adversely affected can bring suit in federal court. Basically, if the EPA and the local environmental organization in the state, in our case TDEC, is not doing its job to protect the environment. And at the bottom we have public participation, citizen enforcement actions, and citizen suits. So a lot of what we do is engaging in the public participation process that I'll kind of talk about and touch on. So some various and sundry things that we kind of are concerned with. We have construction activities. The photo over here is mining activity right next to the stream. We have some suburban development on the right. Don't do that to me. And then we have livestock here on the left. And CAFOs, which stands for Confined Animal Feeding Operations, are something that we haven't really dealt with a lot, but it's definitely on our radar because they pollute incredible amounts of nutrient effluent into Tennessee streams. And of course, the big one is going to be your beautiful mountaintop removal. This is, I believe, in West Virginia, and a lot of Tennessee's hillsides in the Cumberland Plateau kind of resemble this. Not nearly as devastating as this, but you get the idea. So, all right, so we know all this is going on, so all we have to do is go out into the plateau and the hills and take care of all these streams that we see up here. It's a lot of area to cover. So how do we deal with this? You could look at this and you could have a meltdown and be like, oh my God, like I'm overwhelmed. How do we deal with all these streams? So we have to pick and choose our battles. And a lot of the way it's done conventionally in a lot of programs, monitoring programs, is having groups of volunteers or trained professionals who are very well educated about how to identify macroinvertebrates, which are basically all little critters that live on the bottoms of streams. And they identify these things, they go out to streams and like actually collect samples and key them out. And then they would fill out these wonderful forms, macroinvertebrate assessment forms. And basically, by identifying the types of organisms present and the numbers of those organisms, and filling out this sheet, you could come up with a really very time-intensive and labor-intensive number that gives you like an index of the biotic integrity or the health of the stream just based on the number of organisms and types of organisms that are present. So we've done a little bit of this. However, going back to this screen, you can imagine the difficulty in the number of lifetimes you would need to have to adequately assess and take care of this, this stream network using these methods. So we had to come up with a different way because we don't want to spend the rest of our lives counting caddisflies. So we decided to move away from biological stream assessments, which are very labor and knowledge intensive, and instead focus on rapid assessments that also produce bomb-proof data. Without reading this whole thing, it's quick to do chemical assessments. The identity part is that the regulators are really intent on numbers, and if you give them a biotic integrity index, that's gonna be important, but not as important as telling a room full of regulators that, hey, we found arsenic in the stream, we found selenium leaking the stream, you have high levels of connectivity and sediment pollution. So what we've done is we basically replaced a single number, which would be the biotic integrity index of a stream. Instead, we're going to throw at them dozens of numbers, each one that they have to deal with separately, each number that carries with it an idea of how healthy the stream is. And so that's kind of what we're doing now. So the EPA accepts these numbers. We use EPA standards to kind of design our assessments. And the numbers can stand on their own. So if you have a number for TDS, or you have a number for arsenic, for example, and you bring that to court, the court will recognize that number, and an independent observer can say, oh my God, there's arsenic, and you can't argue with that number. Meanwhile, a biotic integrity index, you could say, oh, you had your volunteers, they were new, they went out in the field, they didn't really know what they're doing, they're not professionals, so you could attack that, but not our numbers. So that's kind of the big deal. Another part of it is that with an organization that has a high volunteer turnover, it's important to have assessments that can be done quickly by anybody with almost no training. And so, keep it simple, stupid is KISS. The only down parts are, the bad parts of it rather, is that it costs money, it's costly, and it requires more frequent sampling. So keep that in mind. So basically, we could have somebody go out with a water meter, throw that meter in the water, and also, if necessary, take a sample, and suddenly we have bomb-proof data that doesn't matter who took it, and we can bring that to court. So kind of give you an idea. So the current approach that we use quickly is we identify, locate, and attack new permits and re-permitting activity in East Tennessee. We do field scouting. We just go and look at sites, kind of drive around. We do water testing with our meters. We're engaged with the permit process, the public participation process. We get emails from regulators when a new permit comes up. We will we'll look at that permit, we'll log it, and we'll start the process of going to the regulators' offices and reading the permits, looking for deficiencies in the permits, and we'll use the information in the permits to go in the field and try to attack the permits. We also keep an eye on ag, gas, and oil activity, which I'll go into. And a quick word about the scientific method. We used to kind of just go out and do kind of a shotgun approach. You know, if we're driving and there's a stream crossing the road or we have a culvert, we would stop and check it out. And now, like what I'm going to talk about today, is a much more targeted and kind of surgical approach, if you will, of doing this monitoring. And in my opinion, has really brought us leaps and bounds over where we used to be. And so you can be the judge of that. And the last thing is safety of volunteers. I just want to mention that. Definitely that's part of our current approach. We used to kind of be slapdash about it. We just get in a truck and go. And now, now that we've kind of raised the bar a little bit, where safety is a much bigger concern. All right, so what kind of assessments do we do currently? We do baseline monitoring, mostly with our water meter here. We do dissolved oxygen percent and dissolved oxygen milligrams per liter, which are important. Basically, if your dissolved oxygen is too low, you can't have life in a stream. Stuff won't live there and survive there. We do pH, TDS, which is total dissolved solids, which is also another way of saying conductivity, and temperature. We look at the stream physical condition. We take photos of everything. We look at the banks, the water channels, if there's algae, if there's any odor, what kind of growth you have on the side of the stream. We do some metals testing for iron, manganese, aluminum, selenium, arsenic. We look at sulfate, which is a precursor to acid mine drainage. And in the future, we have a bunch of stuff that we kind of look at in the future. Big things are turbidity. We want to have a method of getting numbers for turbidity to throw at the regulators. We're looking at remote, long-term devices we can throw in a stream that will log the data, basically. We can throw it in, come back a month later, and it'll give us a day-by-day, minute-to-minute idea of what the temperature is doing. So we need money, basically, for that is what it comes down to. And just to give you a real quick idea, we also have the capability of doing a variety of other monitoring activities, such as urban runoff. We do pasture cropland stuff, septic systems, sewage plants, industrial discharges. We've tested a shingle dump site here in Knoxville for PAHs, which are polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, excuse me. So we've really expanded the number of places we can go, the number of things we can look for, and we feel pretty good about it, especially compared to where we used to be. We used to use Lamont kits. Does anybody ever use a Lamont kit? They're little things you take a water sample, you take a little bit of water, you put it in a tube, you take a little tablet, put it in there, dissolve it, shake it, and then look at it compared to like a color chart. And it was just very difficult, time intensive, and the results we got would not hold them in court. And we spent a lot of volunteer time doing things like that until we figured out that let's just do it right. So, before we go into everything else, indicators of biotic integrity, just real briefly, just keep in mind there's stuff in the water column, like phytoplankton basically. You have fish, and you also have macroinvertebrates. Give you an idea of good versus bad streams. Here we have a really nice stream. You have vegetated banks. You have really good vegetation on the sides. You can tell that there's not a whole lot of erosion going on. In a poor stream, an unhealthy stream, you'll have a lot of erosion on the side, not as much vegetation, and it's kind of hard to tell, but there's going to be scour on the bottom of the stream. Basically where the water rushing to the stream is so heavy and so intense that it's going to like just wash everything downstream, including like boulders and rocks and things like that during storm events. Bank stability. Here again we have like a really healthy vegetated bank stream, and then over there we have like a heavily eroded stream. So a lot of what we see in the field looks poor, and we have reference streams that of course look a lot better. All right, so into the meat of our topic. I like to call it armchair scouting. 90% of the work that we do takes place sitting at a desk or something, looking at a computer screen. It used to be the opposite. But again, we've taken a more targeted approach. And what has really led the way for this is advances in the internet and specifically Google. Google's like my best friend, basically. They allow us to use what used to be military-grade technology to go after permit sites and mine sites and find bad actors. So it basically involves planning access to sites, because we used to have some topo maps and things, but we kind of scrapped that and now just use the internet. And like we'll actually print maps as needed of specific places, plot the paths online, put them in a GPS unit, and you basically just have to worry about having enough batteries. Where it used to be, you'd have to focus on map reading and everything. And again, so it's allowed us to go from you had to be really educated to know what you're doing, and now you can look at a piece of paper, be on a road, and you're good. Like you don't have to have a lot of intimate knowledge about mapping and how to read a map and like topo lines and things like that. So it's really been like a paradigm shift in a lot of ways. So we use Google Earth to plot paths. We transfer that information to a handheld GPS unit. Routes and waypoints are important if you get into this. You have to know what your GPS unit accepts, like the difference between like a POI and a route, whatever. It kind of gets a little detailed in there. And the difference between KML and GPX formats. But basically, we have open source software that will convert this stuff. And so as long as you know what kind of like the procedure, you take a file, you put it through a software, you take that file it spits out, put it in a different piece of software, it converts it, and you can drag that to your GPS unit and you're good. So it sounds complicated, but once you have the procedures down, and we've kind of developed some procedures I can share with you later on, that is kind of leading the way right now, but it's in development. So, and the last thing, there are so many free layers out there that have really they've changed everything. For example, I went out on the 7th of September, and I was going to go look at some blackside day streams, which is a threatened fish species in Tennessee. And I was looking at the maps. I was like, I have no idea where to go. And so I did a Google search for blackside day streams.kml, and up pops this beautiful document that the Kentucky Department of Environment and I think Department of Interior put together. But I downloaded it, threw it into Google Earth, and boom, like on the screen there was like the locations of blackside day streams, the dates they were assessed, whether or not they were like existing streams, old streams. It was incredible. So there's tons of free layers through 3D list streams. Basically all you have to do is throw the layer in the software and just decide where you want to go and check it out. It's just pretty incredible. So again, we used to start with topo maps, and you'd have to painstakingly go out, know where you were in the field. And it's good to know, but there's a learning curve for it. And basically it all comes down to delineating the boundary of a watershed, which is the black line here. Headwater streams go into bigger streams and eventually go into the biggest streams. So you have to know a little bit about the hydrology and whatnot, but it's really simple. It's really simple. It's just an idea. So for example, on a topo map, you'd have your area that's being impacted by like a mine site. Upstream of that, you'd have a reference area that you could sample, and then below that, they call it like a recovery area, where the pollution that gets put in kind of diminishes a little bit over time. So just give you an idea of like kind of the sampling we do and the places to look at. This is a screenshot from Google Earth of a KML file that I got from I Love Mountains, their site. They have a bunch of GIS resources on there. And it was this blew my mind. Like I had been going through permit documents and actually trying to take a screenshot and throw it into a GIS program, which is like just a mapping program, and trying to like kind of click around and make the boundaries myself. I downloaded this after looking for it for like 10 seconds literally, and suddenly I had the polygons, the outlines for all the permitted mining areas in Tennessee. It blew my mind, and this really made me think like we've been going things the wrong way. This is changing everything. So you could zoom on this, zoom in to really find points. You could pull up the roads to get there, the streams. You can mark the streams. You can mark the permit boundaries on a map. And using this, along with some other testing we've been doing, we have tested in all these locations. And a lot of this has been kind of helped by having these layers. So this is Zeb Mountain right here, and these testing points, a lot of these were found we found streams to go after that we had never seen before. Because if you're just driving in a truck looking for streams, you'll miss a stream if it's small or if there's a culvert that's like has vegetation over it. We nailed it. Nailed it every single time. It's unbelievable what you can find. Because the satellite pictures they take them during winter when the vegetation is, there's no vegetation based on the leaves are gone, and you can really clearly see where all the streams are. So you mark it on the map, you put it in your GPS, you drive out there. It's like it's stupid proof. It's pretty incredible. And you just throw your meter in the water. You get your results, and I mean you just like shake and bake at that point almost. So a couple examples of how this has helped us. This is Sterling and Strata service line number 1. It's actually the comment period just ended on it yesterday. There was a public hearing for it recently that Carol and some other folks here were at. But here, the red is your permit boundaries. These are our testing points that we've gotten. And the colored lines here, I made those in Google Earth. And I actually use these to go out in the field. So and we have ATVs, I'll show you a picture of that. But basically, we were able to zoom in, and it's really hard to see. There's a faint kind of white line right there. But you can zoom in using satellite imagery, and you basically, if there's a line like that, it's going to be a road that's accessible either through a truck or ATV, or you can hike it if you want to. And you drag the lines, make lines on the map, throw it on your GPS, and suddenly you just have to follow the line, and you just look for streams in the line. It's ridiculous. So we were able to take a whole day's work that would have taken us, I don't know if we would ever have been able to do this before without this technology. And just plot it. I was able to go out with a guy who had never gone out with me in the field. Had some ATV experience, but yeah, we were basically, just like a bunch of dudes on ATVs, and we were able to do, really good science based on, knowing where to go. It's crazy. Because if you're on the field, there's like a slope here, but you can be right here, and you'll be going down this road or whatever, and you'll see it's up here, but sometimes you don't know how to access it. But using the satellite imagery, you know where the streets are, the trails are. You can plot your path to it, and you go from one to the next. It's crazy. This is a satellite photo that I took a screenshot of. I took like 10 screenshots of this mine site because it was inaccessible. I couldn't have gotten there through like an ATV or anything. There's no roads to it. And I was able to take a screenshot, take 10 of these on this one mine site, and I packaged it in a document, sent it to the regulators, and I was like, look, you can obviously see where the sediment pond is, that there's scour, and there is erosion the entire length up to about this point. Actually, of this point, you can see that clearly, right? And I was like, if I can see this on a satellite image, this is damage, this is like unpermitted discharge. And I was able to package it up and send it to him. I was like, you deal with it now. And so I didn't even have to visit the site. I could make permit comments about actual damage from my computer. So we'll see how that works out, if they allow that to happen. But pretty sure that'll do something. This is an image to verify from the site that we visited back in September. We have pictures of this, but I went ahead and checked it on the map. But here you can see we have nasty red drainage coming off the sediment line that crosses the road. And this is a really great violation to find, because anytime you have water crossing the road, it's like an automatic violation because there's sediment pollution, it's unpermitted discharge, they're not allowed to cross the road, they have to be culverted. So it's kind of a big deal. And we were able to package this up again, take a screenshot, put in the coordinates, and send it to the regulators, and like, guys, violation, here's your permit comment, like, deal with it. So really exciting stuff. This is another photo from the Sterling and Strata site that I showed you, with all the pretty colored lines. But geeking out on this, it's just crazy that we can do this. But you can take in Google Earth and move your point of view like you're a bird, and you can literally get a bird's eye view of the mine site, and you can see that you can kind of see the topography of the land, and just plan your trip out that way. It's just it kills me that you can do this. It's beautiful that we can have this access to the image. I mean, they can't hide. You can't hide a mine site, the damage on a mine site, from the eyes of a satellite. And we have that information. Like you can't hide. So we're gonna find it. It just makes things easier. So, excuse me, getting carried away here. So some GIS and programs that you might find useful. Through trial and error and a lot of cursing, we've kind of settled on a couple of different software. It's all free. You can download it right now and start using it right now. QGIS. I used to use ArcGIS. If anybody's heard of ArcGIS, ArcGIS is one of the most ridiculously hard programs to learn. There's like a learning curve, like a mile high, steep on that. QGIS, there's a lot going on, but for what we use it for, it's pretty simple. You can import data, you can modify your data, you can convert your data, you can do some spatial analysis, hydrologic analysis, which we're kind of working on right now. GPS Babel is a really good program for converting between different file formats. You can grab a file from your GPS unit, convert it to KML, throw it on Google Earth, and do all you need to do with that. BR's EXIF Extractor is another program, and then Google Earth. And there's some others on the bottom, but they don't work too well. So I just put them in there just in case. So equipment, before we go into a bunch of photos. I brought all of our equipment with me today. Here is our handheld GPS unit. Cheap. This thing is like, I don't know, like 4 years old. Bought it for like 150 bucks at the time. And there's a USB port on the back. And so basically you can access this device memory using the USB port. You can put maps on it, you can put points, lines, and polygons. And this is like 90% of what I use in the field. It's amazing. And all you have to do is have the free software that I just mentioned to access it and use it. This is a different GPS unit, a little bit different. This is a GPS data logger. And all you do is you activate this, there's a little button on top, and all this does is track your position every second that it's on. It works inside and out. It's got a really nice chipset. This is cheap. This is like 60 bucks. But basically, this will track your position and record it while you're out in the field. But having a backup is really important. So I would recommend having a backup GPS unit just to make sure that if you don't take notes while you're out in the field, which is a no-no, but you know, if you're lazy and like me, you might not take notes all the time, but you can recreate your path using these two devices. Like if this fails on you, you have this and you're good to go. And I'll show you a path that is used. Yeah, so I'll keep this up here. Cameras. My camera's out right now. But we have like a little point and shoot camera that has GPS, and then we have a big SLR with like the big lens on it for taking long shots. But we photograph everything, because if you have, especially if you have this unit, you can photograph yourself holding this unit, and it'll give you your GPS position where you took the photo at. And I'll get to that in a second. So GPS issues, trust improving. So this unit's important because it'll give you an idea of the accuracy of your position, and it'll be right on the screen. You can see it on the photo. But when you use GPS data from like your camera, keep in mind if you get into this that the GPS data that your camera gives you, you got to look at it and proof it, because if you just take it as is, it'll just mess everything up. All your maps will be off, your points will be off, it won't hold in court. So there's a whole slew of issues I'm not going to go into, but just know that your GPS can hurt you, or if it gets away from you, it'll hurt you real bad. So just keep that in mind. Transportation and water testing equipment. So this is an image that this little device right here made this map, and it exports directly to KML, which is a Google Earth file. So it tracked our entire trip, and you know we even went to the top of a mountain here, and you can see how this points a lot. These are the same paths, right? But you can tell how sometimes GPS data can get away from you a little bit, so you got to make sure if you're going to use this in court, you would look at this and like make sure the paths are correct. But I mean, this will give us a timestamp. You can hardly see it. You can drag this slider in Google Earth, and it'll give you a pointer, and every second you can tell where you are on this path. And you can look at the photos that you took and nail yourself down to where you took a photo, where you took a sample at a specific point in time. It's really valuable stuff to have. So here's our equipment again. Here's our point and shoot GPS camera, our SLR big camera, video camera for taking video, handheld GPS, data logger. This is our water meter that I have. This is a Geiger counter, because we're near Oak Ridge. You never know when that might come in handy. And things to take notes that I never use. These are our 2 ATVs that we have. We got a grant and bought 2 ATVs used. These things have like changed everything. We used to have like passenger vehicles, like I take my Honda out. If my Honda couldn't make it up a hill, we didn't test up there. Now, we take these suckers out, and oh my God, you can get anywhere you want on an ATV, anywhere. And best of all, everybody in the Coalfields has ATVs too. And so it's like you feel a great sense of camaraderie out there. You know, they don't suspect that we're dirt worshipping tree huggers because we're camoed out in our ATVs. You know, we're obviously armed and dangerous just like everybody else, so no worries. Yeah, but we can test anywhere, and all of our data that we have is because of these guys, pretty much. Open source. Where does the open source aspect of my talk come from? The redundancy is really important. As I said, back in the day we used to just take photos, and like I cried when I looked back at some of our photos because we have data in these photos, we have violations, awful things that we found, and if you look at a photo, you don't know where it's at, like you don't know when it was taken, and so here's like some awful sludge damage going into the stream taken like 3 years ago. We have no idea where it's at, so basically the photo is completely useless. So we had to think like how is this, you know, how we can keep this from happening, because we're wasting our time. So we used to have photos and then we wrote down notes, like where are we at? That's great, but you know, you have a photo, you take it to court, they're like, we don't, you know, there's no information here. So then we were like, all right, photo, we'll take a picture of the GPS unit. Now you can look at the GPS and know exactly where you were. Now, level 4 is where we're at right now. And so this is like an example of a photo that we take. Here's our water meter. And if you can read the numbers, it doesn't matter. Like, here's your information. You can throw this at a regulator and be like, look, conductivity is 414 SPC. That's your conductivity, right? And they're like, all right, cool, whatever. Like, where's that? Boom, here's your GPS coordinates. Here's your accuracy, plus or minus 48 feet. I mean, it's crazy how you can do this. And this also has a timestamp at the bottom. But even better, you also have exit data. If you right-click on a photo that has GPS coordinates embedded, you go to details, look down, GPS, latitude, longitude, boom, right there. So now not only do you have the picture of the coordinates on your screen, you have the coordinates embedded in the photo. So it's like, hey, we have 3 levels of triply redundant data. You know, you're not gonna pick us apart because you're gonna know where we're at. So if we take a picture of a violation, like you're done. Like we found it, we've nailed it down, you're never getting it back. So really exciting stuff. Here's an idea of kind of the data we're looking at. We have a big Excel sheet. I didn't think that was like cool to put up, not very exciting. But here is like kind of an idea of some data we've gotten, some simple analysis. It's very hard to see, I apologize. We have selenium, we have iron, aluminum, sulfate, and manganese. And I've thrown this past a couple people in Virginia and elsewhere that have done some research, and our results kind of mirror what they've gotten in the Coalfield, so we feel pretty good about our data. But yeah, selenium. And so we got this data through doing lab testing. What we do, there's a lab located up in Maryland, and what we do is we take a picture and then we take a bottle sample and we pack it in ice and 2 days ship it all the way to Maryland. And the reason why we don't do it locally is because we found that local labs, we got kind of weird results from them, like in Knoxville. And lo and behold, the same people we were using to test our data locally also do testing for TDEC and OSM and coal companies. And so it's like, well, you know, we're getting some lost data here, and now that we've moved to Maryland, which is not influenced by coal companies, etc., suddenly our data is a lot better, and they don't lose it. So that's kind of an interesting lesson we had to learn. But this will give us like all of our details, and we just take this and enter it by hand in a spreadsheet. And ultimately, this is what we're looking for. We have like quadruplicate copies that we send to a whole bunch of different people, TDEC, EPA, the coal companies, the landowners, and we will write a little report, nice legal format. Mike knows this, he's looked at this a bunch. And we will also throw every single photograph we have, every video we have, every map that we make, everything that I touch on a computer, I throw on a disk and they can sort it out. If they have our data, they can deal with it. So this is like the end result out of all the field work and all the computer work that we've done, kind of what we're looking for. So we're getting pretty close to time here, so I'll finish up real fast. So our results. 16 times that we've been in the field since 2012. This is a grant funded this work. We got a really great grant to do field work and water testing. 16 times, 142 violations on permitted areas and proposed permits, 19 connectivity violations, 35 metals violations, and we're working on analysis and we'll have that analysis and we'll have that in November. So work on that right now. Last thing before I finish up here and take some questions. This is our QJS software, the screenshot. And what I've done here is I've loaded in the data we have for oil and gas well locations that are currently on the ground. And you can tell that we're like, here's that bump out for New River area. Knoxville's like right here. And just to give you an idea, all these points, there are over 15,000 points on this map. So I'm going to zoom in. So here is the New River area. There's Knoxville, New River, oil and gas locations. And I'm going to zoom in yet again. And this is, between these points right here, that's like 10 kilometers. This is what we're dealing with. Like coal, we're great going after coal. We're really excited about it, getting good results. The next thing is oil and gas. And every single one of these points is leaking, is some kind of violation probably. And so it's going to be just like an incredible field day when we go out and start going after oil and gas. Just give you an idea of what's next for us. I mean, but it's crazy. It's crazy out there. I mean, 15,000 oil and gas wells. And we have, what, 2.5 inspectors in the entire state to deal with this? Is that right, Carol?
I don't know. A quick question.
Yeah.
Those are existing. Can you backtrack like 30 and 40 years where they're not working also, but they're still installed and in place?
That's a good question. This is from a spreadsheet that we got from the state. Some, I think, are no longer in use, like abandoned. But do we have, are you asking if we have data before they went in?
I just wanted to know where the abandoned ones that we in communities know where are at. Are they part of this data, or is there a way to make sure we get it included in the data analysis?
From being at the Fractivist conference and listening to the guys presenting there are probably hundreds of wells that are not on this list, that are either too old or were just drilled without any kind of knowledge of them being there or reporting. So.
But they're still there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that means that if activities go on around them because they've already fractured the earth, then there's even more risk of more damage being done because people are assuming that it's a solid piece, it's like virgin territory,
right,
but it's not.
Right.
And are the underground mine tunnels, even the ones from existing years ago, part of this knowledge?
No, I mean they have maps for underground mines. They're a separate thing. So I don't know. I haven't even looked at that really, the underground aspect of it.
You know me, it just all jumbles up in my head anyway.
Yeah.
But they're all underground and they're all going to affect our life.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind until it gets in your water, right? So, but yeah, knowing they're there is half the battle, I guess, because you know once we're there, I mean there's like a, who remembers the Maginot Line? That thing that was like, was it World War, I think it was World War II, when the Nazis were invading France, and the French built this huge line of forts, and they're like, yes, we're going to fight out the Germans if they invade. Well, if you tie yourself down to a point, like every single one of these points, like there's a company involved, there's a landowner involved, there's a permit number. It's just, you know, whenever we wake up in the morning to go out there, we're going to nail them. So I feel, in a way, I feel bad for them. Because like they're just sitting ducks. I mean, they're sitting ducks for us. It's crazy. So a couple lessons learned before I turn it over. So I'm not going to read every one of these. But the main things, rapid assessments are key. You have to have quality tools and materials. Make shortcuts for yourself by using templates and pre-existing work, like ripping off the I Love Mountains data. Thank God. Like, thank God it's there. I'm not going to reproduce that myself. I'm going to use what they have. Be flexible. Burnout is a big thing I want to mention. I know there's a lot of turnover in organizations, but we need to do a better job of making sure that people are not working themselves to death. And I know I felt burnout once, you know, time and again. But if you go camping instead of looking at mine, you know, destruction all the time, that's a key thing. Like you gotta relax and not take it so seriously. Plan for turnover and back up everything. That's the last thing I want to say. Make sure, like, redundancy is important. Make sure you have your data or your pictures or any information that you're keeping. Put it everywhere. Like, put it on the internet, put it on a hard drive, put it on 2 hard drives because hard drives fell. Just make sure it's in a bunch of different locations. Right now, we have all of our data in like 7 different places. It's on the internet. It's on multiple websites. It's backed up with the regulators. We have a partner, the ACE project, that has our data. We have like 4 computers, like 3 hard drives, and I don't want to lose it because it's critical to have. Finally, a note about safety. Be really safe. Do all these things. And finally, I want to thank people who have helped us. Community Foundation, they gave us our huge grant. Appalachian Community Fund, I want to hug them. Sierra Club, NRDC, UT, Patagonia, and Mary Norris Prior Fund, who provide the money for our truck that we use. Any questions? We're almost out of time here. Yes.
I am involved with the ACE project through SOCM. We just started testing water and uploading it to their site. We're getting ready to do our first training for other SOCM members who want to start doing the same thing. We just use a conductivity meter and a pH meter, so we're not as advanced as what y'all are. We're not sending things to a lab necessarily. But my question is, what do you suggest we do if we find some really gnarly numbers, which we're sure to find? And I guess first of all, how do we find out what? I mean, I understand like what the normal conductivity of a stream should be, but like how do I know if a number is definitely over, a violation, and what should we do?
Good question. So, state of Tennessee does not have regulations for TDS. EPA has several standards that have come out. They've said like anything over and approaching 500 microsiemens per centimeter, which is like their standard conductivity, is going to definitely impact aquatic life. So, for our purposes, like I think EPA actually said 300. So if it's over 300, it's going to have some impact. If it's over 500, like everything's like it's belly up after that. So we flag points that are 300 over 300, and if it's like 400 or 500, we call it a violation, and just let the regulators deal with it.
So you contact TDEC?
It depends. It depends on what we're doing. If it's a specific permit, we'll package that and send it off.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff we've gotten, we just like keep a database of it. And the idea is that we'll go back and test it. And the thing about chemical water sampling is that if you dip a meter in the water one time, it gives you a number. If it's in violation, that's well and good. But in court or in the hearings, they're going to cut you to pieces. It's going to be like, how many times have we reassessed that? Have you done it monthly? Have you done it quarterly? And if the more data you have for a point that backs up that the water is impacted, like the better off you are. A lot of the points we have 1 sample for that location. And so it's not going to give us very good standing. But if we can establish that the point had an impact and go back, even like a year later maybe, or if we had a point that had no impact and we go back later and there is damage now or some kind of connectivity in the stream, then we can make the case that it's been impacted. So. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So maybe an approach of like a sort of adopt a stream approach to where members are testing the same waters over and over.
Yeah.
Because there's not many of us doing it, so to make a real impact.
Like for here, for example, this New River watershed, these are like a lot of like 1 sample points that we've gotten. But if major streams that you can go back to and that's why rapid assessment is so important. If it takes you like 5 seconds to dip a meter in, then you can go back. And just do like a path that takes you around there. So, yeah, it takes a commitment though, because you got to go back. Any other questions? Yes.
It's just kind of wonky questions because I've had trouble with trying to take photos with GPS cameras.
Yeah.
Just because I'll have a camera that will automatically record GPS coordinates, but then it'll take like 5 or 10 minutes to actually get them.
Oh yeah.
And the camera will turn off in that period.
Right.
Did you like your actual camera? And is there like the dream setup where you could just take high quality photos on a camera and then just have those so that they can be easily uploaded to Google Earth, like based on the coordinates? Does that exist? You
can do that. I think Flickr you can do that. But like you said, we had the same problem with our camera. Brand new equipment, like just out of the box. Like a couple weeks later, it took like 5 minutes to get a fix. It was impossible. So instead, we just use these. Like this is bulletproof. Like it never shuts off. It gives you really good data, it updates continuously. So if you take a photo with this in the frame, and sometimes if it's fuzzy in the background, but you can recognize it for what it is, you can take one with the GPS and then one just like of the scene. You know, and like,
Yeah.
we'll say like, there it is, you know, you can't argue with that.
And
But
then
yeah.
was there any advantage to the software that you used to display the gas wells?
Yeah.
Like, was there any advantage to that software as opposed to just using Google Earth layers, or?
Google Earth, you would have to have Google Earth Professional to do what you need to do, like for a GIS. So you have to get that or pay for it, and like we're not going
So
to pay
this is
for
just
it.
something that's cheaper than the
Oh
$500?
yeah, I mean it's
Google Earth
free, and once you know it, it does everything ArcGIS could do and more. There's a whole community behind it. Any other questions, Kara?
More of a comment, is it okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm Carol Judy Yaw, and he's up in my community a whole lot, and we try to bring our work together better because we're part of Central Appalachia, Regional Appalachia, so for me it goes beyond my Clear Fork Valley community. And my Clear Fork Valley community is 2 states, Kentucky and Tennessee, and 4 counties in both. And the majority of us live in unincorporated communities. So that's kind of a story, that's a profile you will see in a lot of areas where they're setting up for mountaintop removal, tar sands, the fracking. And I'm naming all this because for 40 years in my community of place, we have been struggling to find solutions for ourselves because the government's answer has crippled us. Not just as money-poor people, but as a society, because over 40 years you've raised a generation that's not connected. Their reality is not the reality I experienced growing up. And James and them have really been helpful in letting us, taking what we know and advancing it to another level. And the work that it seems to me to remain is to connect even what he's discovering with the knowledge that we have. So how to translate all that scientific language back into the words that we use every day. I don't know Latin. If I grew up knowing it, it'd be one thing, but I didn't, and at my age, I ain't likely to either. And I've worked with enough, I call Yuns a rising generation because I'm kind of like the oldest person in the room, so I get some privileges. And Yuns are matching up with what we in the community of place want. We want a good health and safety community, and it's going to, just as it took 40 or 50 years to get where we're at, it's going to take probably twice that to reverse and get back to where we need to be. So I guess my question is, how can we tie what how can we in the community know it? I'm a certified water tester through the Upper Cumberland watershed. And one of the most powerful things about taking that training was they told me that my data would stand up in court just as well as anyone else's because I had this training. So for 10 years we've done that. So I feel like I'm adding information to something, but it's not, as in that information is not really impacting my community with knowledge about what can we do different. So the oxygen content's up in your water. What does that mean? So I think one thing we need, James, is some more of these, and with SOCM, some more of these 101s on what does this mean,
Right.
for one. And two, that if we know what we can do, we are not going to wait for the government to do it. But we don't always know what to do or the best thing to do. There's plants that we could be planting that could remediate some of this. Some of us we're all somewhere either upstream or downstream some of this damaged land. So in a regional kind of perspective, I just would like for the coming year to be able to translate some of the knowledges we have both in the community and from the scientific level. I'd like you to lead our Boy Scouts or our Girl Scouts or the youth group out with you like you say, when you're on the four-wheelers, you get to hang together, but if we knew more about some comings and goings, maybe we could add to the numbers. We've got a coal ash landfill they're wanting to put in our community. They want to build a railroad to it. You know, right in the middle of stuff that shouldn't, you know, I mean, and it's all going to affect the water.
Yeah. Well, I guess short
So
answer.
I don't know, James. I mean, I just wanted to say that because you asked what you asked about how do we interpret the language, what are the measures? Can we just establish some for ourselves? I mean, Tennessee State doesn't have any measures. We could adapt the federal ones, but what would it take to create what we think are good, healthy measures in our community?
So I would say, like, first of all, what can be done? Like, stop the degradation that's happening right now, and like you said, let the process, like, of healing begin, which is, you can't even start that until the damage that's going on right now and the proposed damage stops, and like you said, the coal ash and things. About the language, I completely agree with you, and I struggled a little bit with you know.
I didn't want you to take that personal.
Oh no, not at all. I'm really glad you brought it up because I feel strongly that, like, I have had to learn, basically, like you said, like Latin, to know what the regulators are looking for. Because if you get up, I've been to so many hearings, Carol, where people get up, they're passionate, their hearts are pouring out about the damage that they see, and like, what can we do? Like, please, for the love of God, stop poisoning my children to death, that kind of thing. And I've also watched those same the regulators that we're speaking to, they don't care, and they don't care about it because they're trained to only respond like rats in a cage, right? You know, they want to hit the switch, and the switches that we need to hit with them are like the Latin. Like, we need to speak in the terms that they understand. Like, you say, like, oh, I'm getting cancer and dying, they don't understand and interpret that. But if you say, we have 500 parts per million arsenic in this stream, oh my God, and they're like, oh, they're robots, they get that. And that, that's kind of like my perspective on it. So yeah, I kind of hate it in a way that, like, the stuff we get sometimes, like, cannot be easily interpreted by the communities that we're trying to serve and help and protect and work with. But it's been a struggle to I'm trying to fight these guys as hard as I can. And, like, I guess the way where I'm at right now is, like, trying to figure out what they respond to and what we can throw at them.